You're listening to Radio Slovenia International. We're very happy to welcome in the studio with us Dr. Stephen Best, Associate Professor of Philosophy and Humanities at the University of Texas in El Paso, also an author and a philosopher, and like myself, a hairless ape. Is that okay to say?
Yeah, you could call us the third chimpanzee if you like.
The third chimpanzee. Dr. Stephen Best deals a lot with animal rights, and that has gotten him into some trouble, even here in Europe, where he was banned from going to Britain. Is that ban still in effect? And tell us what happened.
Yeah, I was banned in 2005. That was during the period still of 9/11 and 7/7, those bombings in London. And the animal rights movement had already been effective in London for a good 10 years. And they were shutting down breeder after breeder. And they were really hitting the supply chains to the pharmaceutical companies. And it's important to emphasize the pharmaceutical companies because in 21st century capitalism, these companies are some of the largest contributors to economies such as the UK. In that case, they're the third largest contributor. So when animal rights activists learn how to be effective, instead of just chanting and holding up signs, and they stop the supply chains of the slaves and the exploitation, the government is going to take notice and crack down very hard. So quite a few people went to jail, good, decent people who are compassionate people. Went to jail for the crime of compassion, I believe. They didn't do anything different than Gandhi would do, except to shut down the supply chains. I had been back and forth to London quite a few times speaking, and they let me in provisionally one year as they banned 3 of my friends. And then the second year, they didn't like what I said, and they wrote me a letter in the Home Office. And it said, basically, "Dear Sir, we've read your writings and we've listened to your recent speeches, and we have concluded that you are a threat to the public order." I said, "No, you are the threat to the public order because you support an industry that produces false data, bad medicine, pseudoscience, and lots of suffering. And so long as there is no peace in your society, there will be no justice, or no justice, no peace, and you can expect this movement to continue with or without me." So I recently challenged this ban about 2 months ago. I wrote the government and I said, "Look, I'm coming back. I think this ban is unjust. I'm going to speak at such and such a place. I'm arriving at such and such a place at this time, and I hope you welcome me." So I came from Gdansk, Poland to London, and they blocked me in Gdansk, Poland. That was their answer, and they had Polish agents do it. So then they wrote me a letter saying that we are upholding the ban against you. We still consider you a threat to the public order.
Now, Slovenia, where we are today now, is kind of I would say, an interesting case within Europe in the sense that here is a country that is now independent for more than a decade, and just this year had its first case of animal cruelty in the courts. This was the first time that this has even happened. So what would you say to people here in Slovenia who are maybe discouraged about, that fact? Or
Well, they should be encouraged because there's plenty of room for opportunity to begin to make change, and change needs to be made here as it needs to be made everywhere. Because, for instance, the industrialized food system, where animals are mass confined in factory farms and slaughtered with horrendously cruel methods. Typically, they're not unconscious when they're killed, so they're sliced apart while they're fully aware and alive. This is the most barbaric system ever invented, and I would draw strong parallels to this system to concentration camps and other industrialized forms of mass murder. In fact, historically, there is a connection between Auschwitz and the Chicago slaughterhouses in the late 19th century. The technologies of mass destruction and mass killing were used in very similar ways. So anybody who thought that the Chicago stockyards could exist and that Auschwitz wouldn't come about soon enough later was not thinking very clearly. So I know there are some vegetarian groups in Slovenia, some animal rights groups, and some education work being done. And if people get educated, they'll realize that animal cruelty takes a million different forms, and it claims billions of victims. For instance, just every year, the number of animals killed for food consumption now is up to 60 billion land animals, and it could be double that if we include sea animals. This is a horrific loss of life and tragedy, and it's a massive bloodstain on our culture and our moral conscience. So it's very important that people get involved in this cause, because we can't have this amount of violence and killing in our culture without it being in our psyches and without affecting other facets of the world, such as the destruction of the rainforest, which are being cleared to raise grains and crops to feed all the cattle and the animals that the world is now eating. This clearly is going to affect us. Industrial farming releases methane gas and lots of pollutants into the waterways, which contaminates our air, helps to create climate change, and poisons our own systems. The pharmaceutical industry is not interested really in advancing medicine but making profits, and they will produce any kind of data to make any kind of drug that is only really tested once humans take it. In every possible way, what we do to animals, we do to ourselves, and we will never, this goes back to the ancient philosophers such as Pythagoras, we will never find peace on earth until we act peacefully toward animals.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stephen Best, for joining us and for speaking with us.
My pleasure.